What's going on, everybody? How's it going? Another episode of In the Corner with the Cornerman, Ryan the Mighty Quinn, and Ruthless Robbie Lawler. Robbie, thank you so much for coming on, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for coming. When I first started this, you were one of the people that I really wanted to do this on. I know we trained extensively in the past, and I think that you have one of the better stories in mixed martial arts to focus on. I just know how hard you work, and just everyone, myself included, is such a fan of your fights. And among other things going on right now that I'm going to ask you about with particular fighters that I think that they could learn from you. But let's start right there. So the first thing I said about when Whittaker fought Adesanya, I don't know if it's because the body type, but I know specifically for Adesanya's body type and his style. I remember thinking like, man, first of all, I'm a huge Whittaker fan. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch right now, and he just the way he's able to fight. I think that he can mimic you the way you beat Rory and Carlos, Rory two and Carlos. He was fighting that fight a lot. Like I know he's got I believe it's Taekwondo. It's not a karate background. It's a Taekwondo background, but he does have really good wrestling. So he was kind of fighting that fight, hopping on the outside, kind of just seeing what was available. Not in the same sense. Like I know George St. Pierre used to use his wrestling, like his karate to set up. He say to use his wrestling with the range and hopping inside out. Whittaker really wasn't doing that. He was being very left hand heavy, which I'm all about. I get that. But he wasn't following up with any rights, and he wasn't really trying to move his head on the way in and just get inside that telephone booth and make it ugly. I think the best of the two fights that I mentioned, your fifth fight with Carlos probably mimics that. Or your fifth round, I'm sorry, with Carlos probably mimics what I'm talking about the most. Um, he did get a takedown, I believe, in the second round. Not that he really had to go for takedowns. I just wanted to see him go inside and make it a little uglier as opposed to the jab hook, which he was connecting with, but he didn't really mix it up after that. It was almost as if he wanted to trade with Adesanya in the point game, and he was getting left behind, like he was trailing on the scorecards. What do you think about Whittaker as a fighter, and do you think that he could fight that style that you fought with those two and pull that off?
Yeah, no, he's a good striker, really good strategic fighter. But sometimes when you throw multiple punches against somebody who as high a caliber as Adesanya, you leave yourself open. So maybe he was worried about that. But sometimes when he probably needed to close the distance, get really, really close, and he'd be safe there. But who knows what he was working on in his camp, and obviously, yeah, definitely getting in close would be huge for somebody fighting Adesanya. But you never know. Maybe he didn't want to get worn out in the clinch a little bit, but as the fight progresses, you need to start working different aspects as far as if this isn't working. When you're fighting high level guys, you need to switch it up. You can't just come with the same stuff over and over and over again. Unless it's working and you're winning the fight, then you just keep going to the well. But against high level guys, you need to switch it up. Maybe have Adesanya come to you a little bit more so that you can counter. But one thing that Adesanya does really well is he counters. So he's really good countering. So if you leave yourself open and you attack too much, he takes advantage.
Yes. And on the flip side, you brought something up that I didn't mention. And actually, it's funny. Like, when I first started this, I was calling it the Monday Morning Cornerman because I was saying all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas that I was doing watching the fight. And those watching, 25 minutes against the best middleweight in the world, it's not that easy. What I just said he should do. It's and you could tell towards the end he tried. He showed a lot of heart. Towards the fifth round, it really looked like he was just lost on gauging that range. Um, to the champ's point, you know, uh, we don't know what they were talking about in the camp. Maybe they had a finish window. That's possible too. Like this is where we score. You don't know what's going through his head, what's going through the corner's head, and I be respectful and mindful of that. But no, I'm glad we got to talk about that because that's something I always had in mind. Um, let's talk about training. Now, I know I mentioned this to you before, and before we get into your rise through training, I want to talk about something you do in your stance that I always noticed, and it always just made me bullish. You do it, and Eve Edwards does it really well. And I know that Coach Matt Pena teaches it because I went over it with him, and it's funny. Like when you're in your stance, you're a southpaw, and I was always in front of you. You had something about your movement that I felt like I was always in threat of being jabbed. I always was doing this for a second, throwing those hands up. It was making me hesitant to throw, making me hesitant to enter. Now, being that I worked with Coach Pena on that, I only find that I'm able to pull that off when I'm doing it against a southpaw when I'm standing in my orthodox stance. When I'm doing it when I'm going against someone who's orthodox, I'm not able to pull this off. Long story short, is that common with the movement you have? I know that I probably just spit out a whole bunch of crap there, but is that common?
Yeah, that's one thing I want to. Any fighter wants to get his jab going, but really it comes down to my footwork. So I get close and I feint using my feet and my upper body. So I'm using my feet to kind of get close, and I'm stutter stepping so that I'm close enough to jab if I need to. But it's more like the pressure. That's what I want. I want to put mental pressure on somebody, even though I'm necessarily not hitting them. I want them to feel that any point in time they could be touched, and that puts pressure on them mentally, which wears them out a little physically. So yeah, it's definitely a footwork thing, and I would say it works lefty on lefty. It works righty lefty. Doesn't really matter, but it really comes down to feints and just putting pressure on them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could buy that. And I like how you said you use your legs. Like I always try to tell fighters when I was coaching, use the big muscles to do the work. All right. Make the big muscles do the work. So many times, like, and you guys who are into fighting have ever heard of arm punches, only using your arms. You got this whole body to bring those arms through. And with those feints, like you were just saying, if you're just using your arms, it's going to look like this, but like with your body, it's a little more fluid. So I'm all about that. Young fighters watching this, get your feints down. It's the jab before the jab. Now let's talk about training. When I first started training with you is when you moved down to South Florida. We were training for your Josh Koscheck fight, and just the rise. And then I didn't train with you for Volkman or really obviously for Rory. I'm vertically challenged. Those guys are not, and But by the time you were gonna fight Johnny, we called it the 10 rounds with Johnny, but the 2 fights with Johnny, and you were going back to fighting wrestlers again. I was a little more integrated into your camp. And you were not the same fighter from when you fought Josh to when you fought Robbie the first and second time. Now, that maturation, that started before the Josh Koscheck fight because you were winning. You were looking fantastic. What I noticed, your wrestling defense and your hips were violent. You were just when I was shooting in on you, you were whipping my head inside, head dribbling, getting your hips on top of my head. You were making me never want to shoot again. And the way you were, you always were ruthless, obviously, getting your body shots in and everything like that, just making me miserable with punches against the cage. It's almost like I was like, I don't want to say throwing in the towel, but you were making me forfeit position just to stop the beating. Like that's basically what it was. Now, that being said, at what point did you realize that something's a little different and these things are working that I'm working? And what were they? Like I mentioned the hips. What do you think was a big part of implementing there that you're doing? I'm not talking about like external with training partners. I'm talking about like, what was it that clicked? Like I remember when things started click with me is when I really started focusing on my boxing and I was able to use my jab and slipping. That's at a more remedial level, obviously. But what can you say was your attribute to your rise when your title run, when you got the title in the title run?
I would say obviously my wrestling got better, but it was the obviously starting to bring in the footwork. But I think my footwork was implemented even better because my takedown defense was starting to get better. My hips were starting to get heavier, learning the little details where if somebody was in on a leg or something, that the takedown wasn't finished, I could get heavy. I could put pressure on them, which made me a better striker because I wasn't worried about getting taken down because I knew my wrestling defense was really good. So it was just kind of like everything coming together at the right time. My striking's always been pretty high level, and then I had been wrestling a lot at Iowa before I came down to American Top Team. So just getting some little details to add to my wrestling because I was in shape, I was strong, but it was like, all right, in this position, get a little heavier here, move your hips over to this spot. Just learning those little details allowed me to feel more comfortable, and I wasn't working as hard to defend takedowns. I was actually wearing on the other guy. So that's probably it. Just learning those little details helped out my wrestling.
Yeah, I know that two particular rounds I remember sparring with you when I noticed this was when we first started training for Josh Koscheck. And for lack of a better word, it almost felt like you were accepting takedowns to try to stand back up and make me waste my energy. But then I remember we were sparring when you were fighting Jake Ellenberger, and I was like, shit, this guy is making me beat him with hands. Like and I was just like mentally, I have to stand and trade with Robbie Lawler. That's what it felt like. Like I was not, you were not. I wasn't getting anything. Wasn't getting a sniff on you when it came to the takedown. Your takedown defense just was. It was more work for me to shoot in than it was to take you down, and I think that was real big there. So other than that, present day. I know last time we saw you with you fought Nick, and you looked outstanding. You were mixing up. I love those body shots we saw in there. I guess I got to ask: was there ever any inkling of a trilogy there, or are we just going our separate ways?
Yeah, I haven't really heard anything from the UFC, but you never know what's going to happen. Hopefully I fight sometime in July, but it is what it is. He beat me the first time. I beat him the second time, and I guess we're just moving on.
Yeah, that's awesome. That would be great if you fought in July. Like everyone knows International Fight Weeks. That's I was about to say that's the Super Bowl, but it kind of, I guess it is. Like International Fight Week is usually a very big event for the UFC, but then they usually have one in December as well. And they used to have one on Halloween weekend and Super Bowl weekend. Yeah. But anyway, those are their tentpoles, so to speak. What would you say is when the UFC focuses on, when is their Super Bowl? When is their big event? Is it International Fight Weekend, or would it be that December card that I mentioned?
I would say it's kind of International Fight Week's always a big weekend, and then usually they have something big in May. But usually, I would say they used to do Memorial Day weekend, and that would usually be in Vegas. And Super Bowl weekend's always big, usually, or had been big. And then International Fight Week; those are usually the big weekends.
Right. Yeah. International Fight Week's huge. I remember. Yeah, December it's kind of been waning. It hasn't really. I can't remember the last December card. I don't think was so big, but yeah, I guess you're right. International Fight Week's where it's at, because then they usually have an event the night after, the Sunday after. And I know what you're talking about on Memorial Day. Sometimes they would have a Sunday event. Everyone's off on Monday. So, but yeah, all right, champ. I guess that's really it. You said before you don't really have anything lined up. We're hoping for July. I'm hoping for July. Any sponsors, anybody that's been helping you support your training or anything like that you'd like to tell us about?
Kill Cliff, Black Rifle Coffee, Get Biofuel, helping
You had
me
me
out.
at coffee.
Yeah, keeping me energized. So energy drinks and coffee.
Yeah, I can't do the energy drinks anymore. I get heartburn. I remember when everyone started with those Ignite, or the Nitro. I remember I took one at 9 a.m. because all the fighters were getting sponsored by it. I didn't eat till 3:30. I was like, I can't get this crap away from me. But that's all we got. Champ, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. You mean the world to me. And I can't wait to see you in the cage again.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Yeah.